Welcome to Glisten's Culinary Delights. I thought long and hard on what to do for this video, and I thought, like, what's better, like, what's the best side dish that you can make? And there's so many varieties of this side dish, so I thought, why not try to do mashed potatoes? Now, we're not doing mashed potatoes, just regular mashed potatoes. We're doing mashed potatoes one way, we're doing mashed potatoes two ways, and then I thought, why not do a healthier version of mashed potatoes? So it's a slightly healthier version of mashed potatoes. So mashed potatoes three ways today. All right, so let's get started with the mashed potato casserole. With this one, what we're gonna do is we're gonna start with 4 russet potatoes. I have one that's slightly smaller than the others, so I'm gonna use 5 for this. First thing I'm gonna do with my potatoes is I'm going to peel them. Sometimes when you're peeling, you have, like, if you notice on this potato, like, I've got like the eyes that are like not coming out. And there's something that's really cool that I never knew about potato peelers, but a lot of them have this little like insert right here that you can use, and that helps you just to scoop out the eyes, so that when you're peeling, you're not having to peel so much. You can just like scoop out the eye just like that, and it's gone. So that's just a little tidbit when you're doing your peeling. Alright, so now that I have my potatoes peeled, I'm going to chop them up into small pieces. That'll just help it so that it cooks a lot faster. So I just get the potatoes, just give it some chops. The smaller you cut them, the faster they'll cook in your pot. Alright, so all my potatoes are cut up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put them in some water, and then we are also going to season this water with salt. Now I'm just going to let this boil on my stove, and it's going to boil for about 30 to 45 minutes depending on how small your pieces are. You'll know it's ready when you stick a fork in it and it comes up, it's nice and tender. Okay, so our potatoes are done. They're tender. When you touch them with the fork, they break apart easily. So we're going to move on to our next step. With mashed potatoes, there's several ways you can do it. A lot of people like to just like put it in a mixer, or you can have a potato masher and mash it like with a potato masher. I have my trusty potato masher. I love this because it really like gets the potatoes small and it doesn't make it like big huge chunks. And it's super easy to use. First step I'm going to do is I'm going to put the potatoes in my masher, and so you're just going to do this a little bit at a time. I'll show you how that goes. Just stick some in the little chamber. Then you just push it down like this. And if you see that the potatoes just come. Okay, so now that I have them all mashed up and I have them in my pot, I'm just going to stir in all these other ingredients that I have. So first is I have butter, and I'm going to put that one in first because the potatoes are still hot and they'll melt the butter. So I just cut it up into little cubes, and it's about 1/4 cup of butter that I'm putting in here. And I'm just going to let it slowly melt in there. The next thing I'm going to put is sour cream. Got 1/2 cup of sour cream. 1/2 cup of milk. Okay, stir all those together. After you do that, you're going to do 1/2 teaspoon of pepper and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Make sure you taste it before you put the salt in, because you did salt that water, so you don't want it to get too salty. Alright, so we have our last little bit of ingredients. I'm going to put the bacon in first. So we got 1/3 cup of bacon, and I just cut it into small little pieces, and then once it was done, I kind of crumbled it so it was even smaller pieces. Okay, so last step is I'm just going to smooth this out in my dish. I've got 1/2 cup of grated cheese. This is just like the Mexican style cheese. You can do cheddar, you can do pretty much any kind of cheese that you want on it. But I'm just going to sprinkle that on the top. And then I have 1/4 cup of green onions. that I'm going to sprinkle on top as well. It's going to be at 350 for 15 minutes. It'll get all gooey and nice and tasty, and then we'll take it out and give it a try. Alright, we've got our mashed potatoes out of the oven. They're perfect. They're looking great. I'm going to serve myself some up, and then we are going to try them out. Oh yeah. Alright. So I'm mixing it up just a little bit, just so I get a little bit of everything from the top and on the inside. Those are so good. Oh my gosh. I love potatoes. And these like have a little bit of everything. It's like a loaded potato in a mashed potato. So good. That's delicious. So keep watching, you'll see the videos of the other potatoes that we're gonna make. Alright, so now here's our next video, what we're going to make for this type of mashed potatoes is a red potato with roasted garlic and caramelized shallots mashed potato. This is like my favorite to make like for fancy dinners. Just because you tell people that you're making roasted garlic mashed potatoes with caramelized shallots. It sounds super fancy, but it's not really hard. So here's the vegetable ingredients, and I'll show you how we're gonna put this one together. Alright, so to roast our garlic, we've got 2 garlic bulbs, and you're not gonna use both of these for your mashed potatoes, but I just like to make multiple so that way I can just store it in my fridge and use it whenever, because roasted garlic is so good. So first thing you're going to do is you're going to, on the garlic bulbs, you're going to take off all this like papery skin stuff that's on the outside of the garlic bulb. Just remove it. Get as much as you can off of it. You won't get all of it, so don't stress about that. Just get as much as you can. Now that I have them all skinned off and I rinsed them as well, I'm just going to get this and I'm going to cut the top off of it. It's about a 1/4 inch off the top. You want to be able to see the individual cloves of garlic. Alright, so if you see the little individual bulbs of garlic, that's how you want it to be. Okay, we've got our garlic on our foil. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to drizzle a little bit of olive oil on the top of each bulb of garlic. Just like that. Okay. And then I'm going to sprinkle it with salt. And then you're just going to wrap it up. I want it to be like in a little bowl, the garlic. Wrap it up completely. Toss it in the oven. The oven is set at 350, and I'm just going to leave it in there for 50 minutes to an hour until it looks brown. I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. Alright, so on to our red potatoes. Now I have 2 pounds of red potatoes, which turned out, when I weighed it, it turned out to be 4 large size red potatoes. You can use small ones if you've only got small ones, but whatever size you can get, that's perfect. Okay, so there's one thing about red potatoes that you should know. I learned this when I was about 17 years old. We were having people over for dinner, and one of them was from Idaho. And so I went to the grocery store trying to find something really good to make for dinner. And I came across some Idaho red potatoes, just like what these are. So I bought the red potatoes, I got home, I decided I was gonna make some roasted potatoes. And so I got them all ready, I got them all cut up, I got them all seasoned up. I peeled them, and then I put them in the oven and roasted them. So later on that night, when our guests came over and dinner was ready to be started, I served up dinner, everybody got their plates, and I told them, hey, I made some roasted red potatoes from Idaho for you guys. Well, little did I know, you should never, ever, under any circumstances, no matter what day, no matter who you're with, no matter how you're doing it, ever under any circumstances, ever.
Don't ever, for any reason, do anything to anyone, for any reason, ever. No.
Peel a red potato. So, for this mashed potatoes that we're making, I'm not going to peel these potatoes. Now, if you're making these potatoes for your family and you hate the skins of red potatoes, then by all means peel them. I'm going to make these with the peel on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do just like I did with our other potatoes in our other mashed potato video, is I'm going to slice them in small slices, and then I'm going to put them in my hot water. And then I'm just going to let them boil. The smaller slices you slice them in, the faster they'll cook. So I'm just going to get some good chunks. Now, your red potatoes, I know I said don't peel them, but you might come across one that has like a weird gash or something like that. And that's totally okay to slice that piece of skin off if you have one that is weird, like this one right here, for example, has like a weird gash here. I don't want that in my mashed potatoes. So I'm just going to slice that little piece off, and that's totally cool. So I have my water here, and if you've ever had a potato that doesn't have any seasoning or nothing on it, you'll know it's bland and it tastes terrible. So we season the water so that the salt can get into the potatoes. Then you also have to use less salt when you actually make your mashed potatoes, because it kind of seeps into the potato, which is really nice. Alright, so the last vegetable that we're going to need to cut up while those potatoes are boiling is our shallot. First things first is I'm going to just cut off the top. You know, it's got the skin on it, so we don't want that skin either. So I cut off the top, and then I'm going to just lightly cut into that so I could take off the top layer of the shallot. So here's what it looks like underneath. You usually have a few pieces of the shallot in there. So I just like to separate it because it makes it easier for my cutting. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the little bottom part on. So I'm going to show you a few different types of ways to cut your shallots, depending on how you like your shallots. Now, if you want bigger chunks of shallot in your mashed potatoes, then you can always just thin slice it like this. I'll show you. So you're just going to have like thin little rings if you thin slice it like that. If you like big pieces like this, then just slice it like that. Now this is how I do it, just because I am not a big fan of big chunks of onion in anything. And so I like to keep that bottom on, and then I just cut it like I would an onion. I slice it in little slices down like this. And then I do one more down the middle like this. So this is what it looks like when it's sliced like that. Then I just lay it flat down on my cutting board, and I just slice it like I did this one. Now, either way is great. Whatever way you like your onions, go for it. If you like bigger onions, then do it that way. If you like smaller onions, you can do it the other way. If you even want it even smaller, you can always just give it a good chop. Whew. Onion's giving me a little cry. Oh. Careful, because the onions will make your eyes water and make you cry. Oh. Done. Whew. Alright, so I'm just going to put this aside, and I'll show you what you do with them next. Woo! Okay, so I'm done crying from the onions. Got them all chopped, or from the shallots, I should say. Got them all chopped. I've got my hot plate on, and I'm just going to drizzle a little bit of the olive oil into my hot plate. Alright, so it looks like our pan is warm. We've got our oil in there. We're going to put these in now. Oh yeah, you hear that sizzle? That's what you want. Okay, and you're just going to spread them around in that pan. I am just going to kind of just brown these. I'm not going to really do anything special to them other than giving them a little sprinkle of salt. That's all they really need is olive oil, a little bit of love in the pan, and a little bit of salt. You don't want them much darker than this. Alright, so they are completely done. My next step is I'm going to take these out of the pan just because I don't want them to continue to cook. And I'm going to put them in my bowl. I just put it aside for my mise en place. If you watch that video, that's a really good one to watch. And I'm going to put them aside for when our mashed potatoes are done. Alright, so we've got a small little bit of onions that I'm going to put directly into my mashed potatoes when the time comes. Alright, so it's time to finish up our red potatoes. So they are done. I've pulled them off of the stove and I've drained all of the liquid out of it. I find that it's easier with the red potatoes to use a potato masher. So I'm just going to mash them like I would any old potato in the same pot that I used to cook the potatoes in. This is what it's going to look like when you have it completely mashed. We've got our potatoes in here. They're all mashed and ready to go. I'm going to start stirring up our ingredients in here so we can put it all together. I cut the butter into cubes just like this so it melts easier. So I'm just going to dump that in with the potatoes and give it a stir. Try to get the butter all melted. Alright, so now I'm going to put my wet ingredients. So I've got my heavy cream. It's a half a cup of heavy cream. Stick that in there. I got a 1/4 cup of sour cream. Stick that in there too. Nice and creamy. So good. Put on my apron because I knew this part was going to get a little splattery, so make sure I stay clean. Alright, that's looking good. Alright, so next thing is we're going to open up that garlic that we put in the oven. And we are going to mince 3 garlic cloves into our mixture. I don't know if you can see that. It pulls apart really easy. The little garlic cloves are really soft and tender, so they're going to go through the mincer really easy, and it's going to give a nice flavor to our mashed potatoes. All right, so watch closely. It's going to squeeze out super simply just because it's so tender from being cooked. So I'm just going to do that and give it a stir. Alright, so as I'm stirring in the garlic, I'm going to also add in those shallots. So that way, it's completely done. I want to taste it at this point before we add any seasonings in, just to make sure that you need seasoning. Sometimes you won't. So depending on how much salt that you put in your water. But I have tasted this and I am going to add in a 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper. Mix that in. And also a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Now you can do this a little bit at a time if you're afraid to make it too salty. So here is what our mash looks like. Got it all nice and in there. It looks super delicious. It's smelling super good. Like I said, if you want to make this in advance, you can just cover it up in your tray and pop it in the oven just before you're about to eat to make it all nice and warm. Otherwise, you can eat it right away, or you can even keep it in the fridge for a few days and reheat it later. So we're gonna have a nice taste of this and see how it turned out. So good. You get a little bit of the garlic, of the onions. You tell people that you made caramelized onions and mashed potatoes. Are you kidding me? They're going to be super impressed. And it wasn't that hard. So, love for you to make this recipe. Stay tuned because we got a healthier version of mashed potatoes coming your way. Okay, everybody, I know I promised you a healthier version of mashed potatoes. But let's face it, the potatoes aren't very healthy. So we are going an alternative of mashed potatoes, and I'm going to teach you how to make an amazing cauliflower mash. Now it's not going to taste quite like mashed potatoes, but it's going to be pretty darn close. What we're going to start off with is a full head of cauliflower. It comes looking like this. You've got like the leaves and stuff down at the bottom. So the first step that you're going to do is you're going to remove what you can. I'm just going to chop off those leaves because those are not going to be part of our mash. And I'm just going to chop it down the middle. Cut it in like 6 or 7 or 8 pieces, smaller pieces, and I'm going to put it in a small pot. Same deal with the potatoes. Smaller pieces you cut it in, faster it will cook. One thing that's a little slightly different from making a cauliflower mash to making a just regular mashed potatoes is cauliflower seeps up water super quickly, and it will become mushy and not very good, and it will be very hard to make it creamy if you put too much water in it. And then you're gonna just cook it until it's softened. So I'm just going to put these on my stove. All right, guys, we're on our final leg of this video. So we are done with our cauliflower. I've taken it out of the pot. I've drained it in my colander, and I'm going to stick it inside my food processor. There's a few ingredients that I'm going to stick in with this before I move on. Just to help it blend easily is a cup of chicken stock. I've got 2 cloves of roasted garlic. One more ingredient, but I am going to put that in after I get this all nice and creamy. An alternative, instead of using the chicken stock, if you don't have it or you want to go a little bit healthier on this, you can just use the water from the cauliflower that you boiled, if you want. So, see how it's looking. All right, so there you go. It's looking nice and creamy. It is very, very, very important when you're making this to drain your cauliflower and to get as much water out of it as you can. Otherwise, it's just gonna be too liquidy. Okay, so we have our final ingredients set out here with our cauliflower mash right here in the middle. I'm gonna show you what you can do. Now, this part is completely optional. If you want to go super healthy, super simple, you can end it here and do nothing else. If you want it to be a little bit more flavorful, you can add these extra things that I'm going to add in. So first things first, I'm going to I have a wedge of Parmesan cheese that I have, and I'm just going to use this. This is a lemon zester, but it makes the cheese really thin and not in like big chunks. So I'm going to use my zester, and I'm just going to grate this cheese. I have some freeze-dried chives. If you have fresh chives, you can use those too, or you can just use this. I'm gonna put a few sprinkles of the chives in there, and then I'm going to mix it up. You're gonna wanna mix it up before you add any seasonings, because this Parmesan cheese is salty, so it is gonna add some salt, so you might not even need to add any salt, depending on how much cheese you put in. So I'm just give this a taste, and then I will know if I need to put any seasoning in it. That's really good. Doesn't need any salt. That Parmesan cheese did a good job in making it salty. But I am going to put a little bit of black pepper. Stir that in. That's perfect. So, here's my thoughts on this. Not as good as potato mash, but that's a given. This is really good though. I kind of made it like a puree in my mixer. You can stir it for longer or for a shorter time if you want it a little bit thicker. Also, you can temper what you put in there as far as your liquid is concerned. That would make it a little bit thicker too. But I feel like that's a good consistency, and it tastes good, and it's good for you. So if you are on a diet, or you just like to eat healthier versions of good meals, this is the meal for you. All right, so it has been amazing making these recipes for you today. These are my all-time favorites, and so I just wanted to spread some of my cooking love over to you guys. If you have any issues making them, or if you want more videos, go to my channel. I have plenty of videos on there. You can also go to my Instagram and follow me there. I do weekly reels on there, and then also put my videos up there as well. I would love for you to like and subscribe to my channel. If you want notifications, just check that notification bell, and you'll get any notifications on my future videos. Thank you so much for joining me today, guys.